The screen is visible. Good evening, everyone. Once again, we start our discussion on Hazlitt's work, Characters of Shakespeare's Plays. Our discussion today will be basically on the reading of the text. And for this reading, I would be inviting my dear students to read the text, and I shall be offering some commentaries on the text so that we can have a better understanding of Hazlitt's work. This essay on Hamlet. A special chapter is there on Hamlet, and we shall be discussing that chapter. So, Kosturi, please reread the first paragraph of the essay.
Yes, sir. This is that Hamlet, the Dane, whom we read of in our youth, and whom we may be said almost to remember in our after years. He who made that famous soliloquy on life, who gave the advice to the players, who thought this goodly frame the earth a sterile promontory, and this brave overhanging firmament the air, this majestical roof, fretted with golden fire, the a foul and pestilent congregation of vapours, whom man delighted not, nor woman neither. He who talked with the grave diggers, and moralized on Yorick's skull, the schoolfellow of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern at Wittenberg, the friend of Horatio and lover of Ophelia, he that was mad and sent to England, the slow avenger of his father's death, who lived at the court of Horvendillus 500 years before we were born, but all whose thoughts we seem to know as well as we do our own, because we have read them in Shakespeare.
Thank you, Kosturi, for this excellent reading of the opening paragraph that introduces us to the work of Hazlitt. So, this opening paragraph Hazlitt has presented in few words the entire character of Hamlet, where we have the presence of Hamlet as the Dane, the Prince of Denmark, a Danish prince who has returned back to his world just after the death of his father. He has come to this world of pestilence and disease. In this world, we have Hamlet finding himself in a world of corruption, sickness, and disease. He finds his mother already married to his uncle, his father dead just a month ago. And Hazlitt refers to his youthful experience with the reading of Hamlet or seeing the play on the stage. And thus we have a kind of understanding of Hamlet character. Hazlitt refers to the famous soliloquy of Hamlet and therefore presents Hamlet as a philosophical prince. He also refers to the advice that Hamlet gives to the players just before the performance of the dumb show, the insect play that Hamlet proposes to be enacted before the public, especially in presence of King Claudius and Queen Gertrude. According to Hamlet, the play is the thing that will catch the conscience of the king. And he plans, through his instruction, he says that please insert some 18 lines in the text so that the players can present a story with reference to the contemporary murder of King Hamlet. So King Hamlet was murdered in the play and the son has returned back. So this aspect has been revealed in the opening paragraph, where Hamlet is seen as a person who will be soliloquizing on life. Okay. Such soliloquies are there in the entire text. An entire character of Hamlet is developed around this kind of self-analysis, soliloquizing his own self. Soliloquy is a device that is often used in theatre in order to show the split in the character, the thinking one, acting one, And through this discrepancy between the two selves of the character, the ironies are often revealed. So soliloquies gradually frame Hamlet's character. Here Hazlitt is drawing our attention to the soliloquies on life. Hazlitt refers to the famous soliloquy of Hamlet, where Hamlet is celebrating the Renaissance man, the Adamic man. But here, unlike Adam, who was placed by God in the paradise, here we have Hamlet, who has returned to his paradise that has become a false paradise, a paradise of hopelessness, of despair, of loss, of death, of ghosts, and that will be turned into an infernal world where Hamlet must execute the advice of his father to avenge the death of his father. So here the words that catch the attention of Hazlitt, this goodly frame, refers to the Renaissance ideal. As we know, Shakespeare was a Renaissance artist, a dramatist, who presented the man at the center of the universe with dignity, trying to shape his own destiny. Character becomes destiny in Shakespeare's play. But here the character who is trying to write his destiny finds himself in a world, the earth, that is presented as a sterile, infernal promontory. And this firmament, the sky, even the air, even the arch that is above us all, even the golden fire, the sun, everything that is there, natural world, has converted this particular space into a world of sickness, disease, and death. The Renaissance ideal that gradually died after the Elizabethan period was over finds its worst form of manifestation in the works of Shakespeare. Critics have often said that Shakespeare has stepped into the Jacobean world with Hamlet. So Hamlet is the Renaissance man who steps into the Jacobean world. This Danish promontory becomes a metaphor of the contemporary English society that has turned into a pestilent, diseased world. So here, this man who is trapped in this infernal, hellish world finds himself as a misanthrope, a person who hates human beings. Therefore, Hamlet says that man delighted not, nor woman neither. So here we have Hazlitt's response to Hamlet on different levels. First, he talks about his recollection of Hamlet. So Romanticism has often been made synonymous with recollection of childhood or youthful experiences. Most of the Romantic poems have this return back to the childhood memories or youthful memories. And this act of remembering constitutes the core of Romantic criticism too. So we remember the famous essay of De Quincey on the knocking of the gate of Shakespeare in the porter's scene of Macbeth. So there also we have this youthful childhood experience that has been recalled. So the entire narratology in this personal essay, informal essay, although it is a literary essay too, focuses on the recollection of the experience. So this is the first romantic feature that we find even in the opening paragraph. The opening paragraph serves as a prologue to the essay, the entire chapter. The second aspect is about the performance aspect of the play. So whenever the Romantic critics are talking about a play, especially Shakespeare's play, they are talking in terms of Shakespeare as a dramatist who is able to create life-like characters, flesh and blood characters on the stage. They are trying to visualize this liveliness of characters and then take it for granted that these are alive, these are the characters who are walking around, and therefore their criticism is more subjective, where the identification is of course there between the critic and the character. This is the second feature of romanticism. So the subjectivity in romanticism, romantic criticism, is different from the sheer objectivity that we found in the neoclassical criticism of Dryden, Pope, Addison, or Dr. Johnson. The third aspect is on the level of characterization. The entire book is the first seminal book that is devoted to the study of Shakespeare's 35 plays. And definitely so many characters are there who are analyzed. Even the title of this book is The Characters of Shakespeare's Plays. So by focusing our attention, drawing our attention to the art of characterization, Hazlitt is preparing ground for the romantic criticism, much influenced by the German romanticism, especially the works of Schlegel. He finds in Shakespearean characters life and blood beings who are psychologically convincing. So they have nature, either nature read in tooth and claw, or nature that is benevolent, nature that has humanism, nature that has cruelty and violence. So that holistic picture of man presented by Shakespeare has been appreciated by the German critics. And the same trend can be seen in the romantic criticism of Shakespeare's in England. So he's referring to the characteristics of Hamlet. Hamlet has turned into a misanthrope, a person who hates mankind. So once he finds himself trapped in this world where man is not delighting him nor woman, so he becomes trapped in the world of corruption, where a father is killed, the mother marries someone else, the uncle is become the ruler of the land after usurping the power. So he has lost his ground. He has lost his entitlement to the power. And in this changed political order, Hamlet must return back, or must at least try to regain control and authority. That is what the text proposes. Here we have this development of Macbeth through the plot, but Hazlitt is focusing primarily on different aspects of Hamlet's character. So the fourth aspect is the focus on different aspects of character development rather than the development of plot. You remember Aristotle has stated that the plot is the soul of tragedy, character is secondary. In romantic criticism, we find that character is the soul of tragedy, soul of play, even comedy, and plot comes or becomes secondary. So this is a major replacement of emphasis on form to emphasis on content. When we talk more about plot, we talk more about form and structure. When we focus more on character and content, we are shifting our attention from neoclassical criticism to romantic criticism. Therefore, here we have the development of Hamlet. So who talked with the gravediggers? In the famous gravedigger scene of Hamlet, we find Hamlet conversing with the gravediggers, taking a skull in his hand, poking his finger into the eye holes and speculating on life. Because this skull in his hand was that of Polonius. And you know the story that how Polonius was unwittingly in a wanton act killed by Hamlet when he was accusing his mother in her private chamber. Polonius was hiding behind the arras, behind the curtain. So this conversation with gravedigger of intense philosophical value, having a sardonic humor in it, that places life and death together on the stage in the best way. So this Yorick skull, and then we have the school fellow of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, that his fellow students at Wittenberg. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they were Hamlet's friends. Okay, fellow students at Wittenberg. The reference is there to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Who are these Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? So we remember that how Claudius, King Claudius, has hired Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to spy on the activities of Hamlet. Hamlet in the play feigns madness, appears to be a mad person because he is secretly cherishing his desire to convert his privately told act of revenge by the ghost into a public act of revenge. He was trying to convert this private task into a public task. He cannot believe fully the words of the ghost. Although this ghost is also father's ghost, he cannot fully believe because he has faith in human beings. And this hardcore faith in human beings promotes Hamlet's concern with such crimes. So he is not a criminal. He must always look into this act as a deed of horror. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were appointed by King Claudius to spy on the activities of Hamlet, so whom he meets, with whom he talks, what are his secret plans, is he planning to usurp King Claudius? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they are the attendant lords and they accept this task. So after the death of Polonius, when the entire society is searching for the criminal, Hamlet is given an escape route to go to King of England, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are asked to accompany Hamlet. So Hamlet escapes with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to England in order to escape from the guilt of crime as well as the punishment that follows, because this person Polonius is also the father of Ophelia. Laertius might come back and avenge the death of his father. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern accompany with a letter given by the king, and in this letter is written, addressed to the King of England, that whenever you get this man Hamlet, the only task that you can do is to kill him. So this is the secret plan of Claudius, engaging two fellow friends of Hamlet in order to kill Hamlet, just to send him away from the path so that no one can usurp his power. The ship, however, has been attacked by the pirates, and we find that Hamlet gets that letter, unseals it, and then reads the letter and finds the content, especially the name of Hamlet written on it. Interestingly, he replaces the name of Hamlet with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and then escapes. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they reach England and give this letter to King of England, and naturally, according to the request of King of Denmark, King Claudius, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they are executed. So we are therefore introduced these two characters. So it is entirely a sketch of Hamlet's character with reference to what he is doing. There is also a reference to Horatio, again an important character, the help friend in need of Hamlet, who sticks to Hamlet throughout the play. There is also a reference to Ophelia, the beloved, Polonius's daughter, whom Hamlet ignores because Hamlet finds himself on the receiving end of ingratitude and betrayal. He finds his mother married to his uncle and soliloquizes she should have waited longer. So even when the body of the father was warm, she could enter into this warm matrimonial alliance with King Claudius, his uncle. So frailty, according to Hamlet, is the name of woman, and the entire anger of Hamlet, his misogyny, is vented out against Ophelia. Ophelia becomes a recipient of this hatred. So Hamlet feigns madness in the play, and Hazlitt points out this: he that was mad and sent to England, the slow avengers of his father's death. Slow avenger, interestingly. So Hazlitt belongs to Hamlet's party, and even though Hamlet procrastinates and can accomplish the act of revenge only at the moment of his own death. According to Hazlitt, Hamlet is a slow avenger, is an avenger of his father's death. So he refers to this quote of Horvendilus, okay, drawn from history, Danish history, 500 years ago. So it is 11th century history of Denmark on which Shakespeare is placing this play. The source is, of course, our Hamlet, a play that existed even before Shakespeare's Hamlet was written. The historical source is referred to in this reference to this. So a kind of reading of the text, holistic reading of the text, can be seen in romantic criticism. This is an aspect that is worth examining. So the characters are historical and therefore brought again into life in Shakespeare's play, and Hazlitt the critic will be viewing Shakespeare's representation of character in terms of their liveliness, their humanness, their being as a flesh and blood being. So this is a prologue to Shakespeare's Hamlet and a prologue to romantic criticism. So we have in the second paragraph reference to the character of Hamlet. So the analysis now begins. Yes, Daraksha, please read the second paragraph of this text.
Yes, sir. Hamlet. Hamlet is a name, his speeches and sayings, but the idle coinage of the poet's brain. What then? Are they real now? Are they not real? They are as real as our own thoughts. Their reality is in the reader's mind. It is we who are Hamlet. This play is a prophetic truth which is above that of history. Whoever has become thoughtful and melancholy through his own mishaps or those of others, whoever has borne about with about with him the clouded brow of reflection, and thought himself too much I am the sun. Whoever has seen the golden lamp of the day dimmed by envious mists rising in his own breast, and could find in the world before him only a dull blank with nothing left remarkable in it. Whoever has known the pangs of despised love, the insolence of office, or the spurns which patient merit of the unworthy takes. He who has felt his mind sink within him, and sadness cling to his heart like a malady, who has had his hopes blighted and his youth staggered, and by the apparition of strange things, who cannot be well at ease, while he sees evil hovering near him like a scepter, whose powers of action have been eaten up by thought, he to whom the universe seems infinite and himself nothing, whose bitterness of soul makes him careless of consequences, and who goes to a play as his best resource to show off, to a second remove the evils of life by a mock representation of them. This is the true Hamlet.
Thank you, Darakshana. Excellent reading of the text. And what the text reveals is more about Hamlet. Does it reveal also about the critic writing on Hamlet? So first of all, romantic criticism is all about subjectivity, where there is a kind of identification with the character's persona. Here Hamlet is presented as a real being. Okay, just not a coinage of the poet's brain. Okay, it's a name, it's a real entity. And the poet is talking about the reader's mind vis-a-vis the mind of Hamlet, or through Hamlet's mind, the mind of the poet. So we are Hamlet, we who are Hamlet. See the expression, it is we who are Hamlet. So this identification is interesting mark that reveals romanticism's concern with the ego, egotistical sublime. Identification is a form of relating one's own self with the other self. And here, even the created characters are assumed to be real, with whom much identification is done. So this is a kind of subjective reading of the text. Okay. So unlike the neoclassical critics who talked more about drama as a artifice, here we have within the artifice of theatre the presence of living characters. The play has a prophetic truth. So this obsession with prophecy is again an aspect of romanticism. So they read more in the play than what is there in the play. This is a kind of observation made by the post-structuralists who find in romantic criticism much obsession with contemporary history, contemporary times. So this has to be neutralized. New historicist criticism talks about neutralizing the reading of the text with reference to the contemporary times. Rather, the text should be placed in the historicity, and there should be a historical reading of the text. So Hamlet, as we have seen, is a character drawn from 11th century history, written in 16th century England, produced in early 17th century England. And here a 19th century critic writing in 1800, 16, 17 is talking about Hamlet as if he is there alive on the stage. So he is also commenting on Hamlet with reference to the contemporary condition in England. We remember that this period, the first 2 decades of 19th century, was the tumultuous decade in the history of England, where we have agrarian revolutions against the industrial revolution taking place. The entire transitional society that is moving from the agrarian structure to a new industrial mode of production found supporters as well as opponents. The ideals of French Revolution has now vanished, where the revolutionary character figure of the revolution has turned into a dictator. So from revolution is born Napoleon. Napoleon has turned into a dictator. Even though the decisive battle of Waterloo has re-established the positioning of England as a supreme power, yet there was a distrust against that revolutionary politics. In this historical context, if we find and try to analyze Hamlet, Hamlet definitely gives us a new reading. And therefore, Hazlitt is trying to read Hamlet with reference to his own times, socio-political, economic reading of the play Hamlet. So if you make this character who is alive on the 19th century stage and make this character alive in the contemporary society, the reading of Hamlet might become interesting, but will definitely remain subjective reading. So with this view, we have a 20th century playwright like Tom Stoppard writing a play called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, working on the same prophecy that Hazlitt is pointing out. What is the prophetic truth? Which is above that of history. That is the prophetic truth. In this play by Tom Stoppard, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern return back into the fictional space of Shakespeare's Hamlet in order to investigate what was the cause of their death. Why were they killed? Why are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern dead? So they are simple pawns in the political history of Denmark presented in the play. So when they offer the letter to the King of England, a letter that contains not Hamlet's death, but their own death, the King of England asks Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, shall he follow what is written in the letter? So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern simply say, yes, whatever is written in the letter, it is the view of King of Denmark. So please, King of England, follow that. So we are simple attendants. And what is done by the king? He simply executes Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. So Guildenstern and Rosencrantz are dead. So human beings, Tom Stoppard saw in the contemporary 1960s, the play was composed in 68, in the late 60s, were the pawns of history. They could not write history. So can Hamlet also write history? That is what Hazlitt is saying. So wherever whoever has become thoughtful and melancholy through his own mishaps or those of others, whoever has borne about with him the clouded brow of reflection and thought himself too much in the sun, So this is the romantic personality that Hazlitt finds in Hamlet. This is Byron's personality that is found reflected in Hamlet. This is the romantic personality of John Keats, of Shelley, that is reflected through the character of Hamlet. So what is this character? A thoughtful, melancholic character who is aware of the society, who has been bearing the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, and with this crowded brow of reflection will be reflecting not only on the society but also on himself. So he is too much in the sun, brought into the light of the day. So whoever has seen the golden lamp of the day dimmed by envious mist rising in the own breast, and could find in the world before him only a dull blank with nothing left remarkable in it. See the excellent poetry. So this is another aspect of romantic criticism. Wherever the romantic critics wrote, instead of writing criticism, they wrote their own original poetry. When you read Samuel Taylor Coleridge's biography, Literaria, we find that this is also an excellent piece of poetry that not only theorizes the romantic creed of poetry, but it is poetry that Coleridge writes. This is, of course, influenced again by the German Romanticism. German Romanticism that developed around the works of famous writers like Goethe. You must have heard the name of Goethe. English Romanticism developed on the works of Rousseau. You must have heard the name of Rousseau. Rousseau wrote Emily, Confessions. So romantic ideal based on the French and the German ideal gradually shaped on the concept of man, a man who will be focusing on his social being, not as an autonomous individual, but trying to bridge the self with society. And through this bridging of the self and society, with the self and sense, with the sense and sensibility, with the sensibility, the supersensible, the romantic personality will definitely find ground. So in Hamlet, they found a person who is vacillating between two extremities of passion, questioning the validity of life, finding himself in a perpetual metaphysical trap, existential situation. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether he should engage himself in proactive revolt, take up arms against the sea of trouble, oppose them, or just remain passive throughout, keep on procrastinating, suffering the arrows, the slings and arrows of outrageous life. What should Hamlet do? So the Romanticism was also born out of this eagerness to fight against the evils of society. But there was also state repression at work. So even after the decisive Battle of Waterloo, the English society was not liberal. Doubts were there against the revolutionaries. Even after the massacre of the peasants in the fields of Peterloo, England was not moving towards a more liberal society, humanistic society. So the massacre was there. The farmer revolution, the revolution of the Luddites were there who were breaking the machines. So here Hazlitt is positioning Hamlet in the contemporary situation and reading Hamlet as if he is alive. You remember Jancott writing an essay, Shakespeare, our contemporary, in the 1960s. And his focus was also on re-establishing, reaffirming the presence of Shakespeare's Hamlet in the contemporary society. Even when we find the adaptations of Hamlet, we find such preoccupation with the times, with the contemporary times. You must have seen Haider. So Vishal Bhardwaj's movie Haider, where we have seen Hamlet's character rediscovered in the contemporary Indian times, and with censorship of 82 scenes from this film, Haider was finally released, where we have this person, Haider, Hamlet, sitting at the center, vacillating between two extremities, caught in a catch-22 position, whether to take up arms, revolution, or just to suffer. So whoever has seen the golden lamp of the day dimmed by envious mist, see the contradictions, two aspects. rising in his own breast, and could find in the world before him only a dull blank with nothing left remarkable in it. Romanticism has often been called as an agonized search of an individual for sanity in society. Okay, therefore, we have the terms like romantic agony, often attributed to the works of romantic writers. Now, if literary criticism is also clouded with the gloom of agonized mind, it becomes problematic. That becomes a kind of subjective reading of the play. When A.C. Bradley is writing Shakespearean tragedy, his essay on Hamlet also focused on this dilemma of Hamlet. All the critics, almost all the critics, have focused on Hamlet's dilemma. Hamlet's dilemma has remained at the core of Shakespearean criticism. But this dilemma of Hamlet has been often analyzed within the context of history or outside the context of history, within the context of the contemporary times. Romantic criticism places that work, the text, in the contemporary times. So it is the preparation ground for the romantics to write plays like this. So we have Byron's Manfred, based on this text, as well as Hamlet, as well as Macbeth. So we have Prometheus Unbound of P.B. Shelley, based on the same romantic idyll. So we have Borders, where we have the same preoccupation with this romantic idyll. Whoever has known the pangs of despised love, so this pangs of despised love, again identified by Hazlitt, has remained in the center of romantic poetry, where the pangs of despised love often haunt the lovers. Say in Byron's She Walks in Beauty, there is no kind of despised love, and yet the lover has to leave the place after appreciating the beauty of the lady, the idol. And the Byronic character moves from one place to another bearing this. When we meet Keats's knight at arms in the frozen fields, he has been expired emotionally, drenched out by a beautiful lady without mercy. The pangs of despised love, the insolence of office, these are the points that are exposed through Hamlet's dialogues. So what are these? Insolence of office, corruption that is there in the office, the spurns which patient merit of the unworthy takes. Okay, the wrong treatment of patient in the hospitals. He who has felt his mind sink within him. So this sorrowful heart of Hamlet brings that romantic agony, the romantic predicament, the romantic quandary. Okay, romantic uncertainty, no romantic negative capability. So art, according to Keats, depends on the act of poet living in a state of perpetual mystery. Art is trying to resolve the mystery, but art is born when this mystery is kept unresolved. Romantic criticism also focuses on Hamlet, tries to resolve the mystery of Hamlet, but then keeps Hamlet's character unresolved. So he who has felt his mind sink within him, sadness cling to his heart like a malady. So here we have the scepter of evil. Okay, apparition of the ghost, the supernatural. So action and thought, the conflict between these. So entire character of Hamlet is seen as a romantic character, split, conflicting, contradicting, trying to resolve the ambiguities of life. A person who has seen the bitterness of soul, person who has also seen the love of Ophelia, of Polonius, who has felt the pangs of despised love, but also has got the reciprocation of love. So we have this mixture of dual selves in Hamlet. So Hamlet keeps on dragging himself on, procrastinating with his main idea of revenge. So this is true Hamlet. See the conviction with which Hazlitt is talking about true Hamlet. So this play becomes a source book of romantic character and conduct. This must have influenced, the play must have influenced much of romantic imagination, especially in the conception of character. So we have, say, John Keats writing in 1818 his May Odes. An example is Ode to a Nightingale, where we have seen this same person vacillating between two extremes of escapism and realization of grim realities of life. So whether he should escape into the world of Nightingale or shall be fixed in the agonized suffering, the pains of life, the pains of pangs of despised love, the fever and fret of life. So here we have this oscillation. Romanticism tries to reconcile these opposites. And according to Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Romanticism talks about the reconciliation of opposites. Even William Blake talks about the coexistence of contradictions. Without contraries, there can be no progression. So this is, in short, the entire romantic view of Shakespearean characters that is found in Hazlitt's work. So we move on to the next paragraph. Yes, Sweta, can you read? Yeah. Next paragraph. Tiyasha, can you read?
Yes, sir.
Okay, start.
We have been so used to this tragedy that we hardly know how to criticize it any more than we should know how to describe our own faces. But we must make such observations as we can. It is the one of Shakespeare's plays that we think of the oftenest because it abounds most in striking reflections on human life, and because the distresses of Hamlet are transferred by the turn of his mind to the general account of humanity. Whatever happens to him, we apply to ourselves because he applies it so himself as a means of general reasoning. He is a great moralizer, and what makes him worth attending to is that he moralizes on his own feelings and experience. He is not a commonplace pedant. If Lear is distinguished by the greatest depth of passion, Hamlet is the most remarkable for the ingenuity, originality, and unstudied development of character. Shakespeare had more magnanimity than any other poet, and he has shown more of it in this play than in any other. There is no attempt to force an interest. Everything is left for time and circumstances to unfold. The attention is excited without effort. The incidents succeed each other as matters of course. The characters think and speak and act just as they might do. If left entirely to themselves, there is no set purpose, no straining at a point. The observations are suggested by the passing scene, the gasps of passion come and go like sounds of music borne on the wind. The whole play is an exact transcript of what might be supposed to have taken place at the court of Denmark at the remote period of time fixed upon, before the modern refinements in morals and manners were heard of. Sir, I can't see anything on the screen. The whole play is an exact transcript of what might be supposed to have taken place at the court of Denmark at the remote period of time fixed upon, before the modern refinements in morals and manners were heard of. It would have been interesting enough to have been admitted as a bystander in such a scene at such a time, to have heard and witnessed something of what was going on. But here we are more than spectators. We have not only the outward pregnance and
Pageant.
pageants and the science of grief, but we have that within which passes shew. We read the thoughts of the heart, we catch the passions living as they rise. Other dramatic writers give us very fine versions and paraphrases of nature, but Shakespeare, together with his own comments, gives us the original text that we may judge for ourselves. This is a very great advantage.
Thank you, Tiyasha, for this excellent reading. So,
Thank you, sir.
what we find in this analysis is the representation of Hamlet as a character full of complications, contradictions in nature. But one thing is sure, that Shakespeare is appreciating the nature of Hamlet in such a way that Hazlitt is bound to appreciate Shakespeare as a poet of nature. The tragedy of Hamlet is well described, and here we have Hamlet as a character who represents humanism. Whatever is happening in the life of Hamlet, according to Hazlitt, can be viewed as happenings that are universal. Hazlitt considers the creation of Hamlet as an original one, and even compares with other writers who take often much of their endeavor to create characters. But according to Hazlitt, Shakespeare's character is original and natural. Romanticism is also a kind of return back to nature of man. It is also talking about the naturalness of representation to art. Even in the preface to Lyrical Ballads, we find that Wordsworth is talking about return to nature. You remember, return to nature. What is return to nature? In the words of Wordsworth, return to nature is a return to the elemental passions of human being. So his tasks in romantic poetry will be to go back to the world of elemental human beings, and from incidents and situations choose something that is of universal interest and present them in a language really used by men. Here we have this originality in Shakespeare identified by Hazlitt. Hazlitt even talks about the didactic function of Shakespeare's Hamlet. Romanticism talked much about literature as a moral, philosophical, prophetic work, where the poet is a seer blessed. Romantic criticism also identified these philosophical, prophetic, visionary impulses of the writers. And in Shakespeare, Hazlitt finds this and regards Shakespeare also as a moralizer who talks about contemporary situation. So compared to Lear's grand passion, Hamlet's ingenuity is appreciated by Hazlitt. So he regards this as an unstudied development of character. Interesting, this word unstudied development of character. There is no scholarship in the creation of Hamlet according to Hazlitt, rather a naturalness, unstudied naturalness, where elemental passions are best explored, not through a contrived academic or pedantic reading of the character, but rather through a natural representation of character. This is where T.S. Eliot found his objection in the representation of Hamlet. So the 20th century early criticism, especially the formalist criticism, was opposed to such reading of the text. It regarded text as a text and everything lies in the text. Why we have this type of reading of the text that goes beyond the text in the analysis. So Hazlitt is going beyond the text, reading in between the lines of the text in order to find the creation of a character. This is also a bioliterary criticism. So whenever Hamlet is talked about, Hazlitt is also referring to poet as a creator. So Shakespeare is appreciated and his mind is best explored. Eliot said that no, spontaneous overflow of powerful feeling can also be seen in the adolescent works, and such spontaneity is not required because mind of the poet is like a platinum, a shred of platinum, a catalyst that can only help in the reaction, organic reaction, inorganic reaction. But here we find that Shakespeare had more magnanimity than any other poet. So this type of remark, especially is an appreciation of Shakespeare based on his nature. As Hamlet is good, as Hamlet is having that vacillation or a mind that is philosophical, as Hamlet has humanism. So Eliot will be asking which character is Shakespeare. So he said that this is a Mona Lisa. Hamlet is the text is a Mona Lisa, an artistic failure, because Shakespeare, the poet, does not have objectivity in the portrayal of Hamlet. A set of situation is placed, but Shakespeare belongs to Hamlet's party. He becomes a part and parcel of Hamlet, and therefore other characters are not allowed to participate in the either in the making of Hamlet or in the making of themselves. They are not objectively presented. So entire focus is placed on Hamlet. Hazlitt, on the other hand, as a romantic critic, as opposed to neoclassical criticism, finds in Hamlet a projection of Shakespeare's mind. Like Wordsworth stated that Shakespeare, through his sonnets, unlocked his heart. T.S. Eliot opposed this view and said, had Shakespeare done so, a lesser artist is he. So Hazlitt is saying that Shakespeare has unlocked his heart and mind through the creation, through the original creation of Hamlet. And definitely the neoclassical critics or the post-romantic critics, Victorian critics and the 20th century critics, will find fault in the search, in the findings of Hazlitt. However, in the 20th century, where we have the use of psychoanalytic tools in order to analyze characters, we have some affinities in this romantic reading of Shakespeare's Hamlet. So Hazlitt is a romantic critic, not an objective critic, rather a subjective critic who tries to use his subjective reading vis-a-vis the analysis of a writer, poet as a creator, and through the character finds the essence of the author. Author is dead. D.H. Lawrence said that when you are trying to describe a bubble blown in the air, you're not talking about the bubble blower. The text is a text. Everything is contained in the text. Form and content both are there. So this criticism is not there in the romantic criticism. Within the text, we find the presence of the author. In the conception of Hamlet, we have Shakespeare. So Shakespeare had more magnanimity than any other poet, and he had shown more of it in this play than in any other. Therefore, Hamlet is a play that is not only original, but also a play that is closest to the heart of Shakespeare. And through Hamlet, Shakespeare has unlocked the magnanimity of his mind. This is criticism that definitely all the post-critics, post-structuralist critics, post-feminist critics, they will object. So he's saying that this naturalness is prevalent in the conception of the character. So Hamlet is allowed to go as you like. Interesting. So he is not a character who is totally controlled by the plot. In classical plays, Aristotle identified the importance of plot, because this plot will be allowing the character to move from one state to another, from a state of relative happiness to a state of perpetual sorrow, death, exile, from a state of ignorance to a final knowledge about life, passing through different stages like hamartia, reversal of fortune, peripeteia, then anagnosis, the realization. So through these stages, the tragic hero will develop from the opening scene to the concluding scene. But here, Hazlitt says that there is no plot that is framed or imposed on Hamlet. Rather, Hamlet, the character, is independent, liberal, freed from the tyranny of the plot, allowed to roam free in the world of Shakespearean play. And therefore, there is no attempt to force an interest. Everything is left for time and circumstances to unfold. That means Shakespeare simply allows this person to procrastinate, delay. Aristotle said that consistency is a hallmark of the tragic hero. He should be like the reality. Hamlet is like the reality. He is of noble birth. He commits inertia. But where is the consistency? F.L. Lucas says that yes, Hamlet is consistently inconsistent. That is his consistency. So if inconsistency is the hallmark of human beings, yes, Hamlet is one. According to Hazlitt, yes, this is the original conception of character. Character is a person who lives in the world of dreams, in a world of thought, little action, in the verbal wires that are all meshed together. The character is stuck. So this positioning of the character in this stasis without having any kind of resolution, according to Hazlitt, allows this character to succeed as the most original character. So the attention is excited without effort. Incidents succeed each after other. So as if nothing is clearly laid out. There is no beginning, no middle, no end. There is no magnitude in action. The unity of action is totally violated. And with the influence of Senecan revenge tragedy, the element of madness that is enforced in the play, along with revenge, makes this go as you like process of Hamlet more interesting, according to Hazlitt. So we have the gusts, the passing of scenes, okay, passion, as if wind is blowing. So come and go, sound of music borne by the wind. The exact transcript of what might be supposed. So here we have a blending of the real world and the virtual world, the world of dreams, of the mind. The material world, of course, has been identified by Hazlitt. So this is an inner contradiction in the play. So if you are allowing a character to roam free, Keats himself said that let ever fancy roam, pleasure is never at home. So on the one hand, you are allowing this character to roam free, unplotted in the world of Denmark. On the other hand, you are talking about this place as a real place, the place at the court of Denmark, although remote, historical place. This place, according to Shakespeare, is a place where we have reality. So refinements, modern things are there in this setting, political setting. So we have been sitting outside the fence, watching what is happening in Denmark. But we are more than spectators because we are also participants, according to Hazlitt. The theater always creates a kind of separation between the audience and the spectator by creating the fourth wall, the line dividing the spectator and audience. But here we have a romantic critic saying that we are more than spectators, that we are participants in the play. We have not only the outward pigeons, okay, scenes, sceneries, and the size of grief, but we have that within which passes through. So we are part and parcel of what is going on in this historical space called Denmark. It is not Shakespeare's England, rather the contemporary England where Hazlitt has the vision of Hamlet. So it is apparition of Hamlet that Hazlitt is talking about. Literary criticism, however, should not depend on speculations and apparitions. Okay, so if you try to read the characters as if they are alive, and that too in a fictional space which you are watching from outside the fence, sitting in a different type of land, the reading of the character or the land of the play might become misleading, might be a subjective reading. So this essay can be said to be a kind of composition, very interesting composition, readable composition, excellently written in good prose, but also speculative criticism. So he even compares other dramatists, writers, give us very fine version and paraphrases of nature. But what Shakespeare does, together with his own comments, gives us the original text. Shakespeare's Hamlet is a pirated text. with due respect to Shakespeare, I say that Shakespeare is the greatest literary thief, and therefore he is the greatest writer of all ages. Theatre depends on this type of borrowing, in this type of using. Tales are there everywhere. So people are aware of the tales. But drama is a conversion of the tales into a dramatic work. Hamlet succeeded on the stage. It is the most critiqued text of Shakespeare. A large section in the British Library has been kept for Hamlet alone. So it is the text that has drawn criticism, admiration, appreciation, comments, commentaries from writers. But that text also depends on the presence of a critic who will systematically read the text. Here, Shakespeare is appreciated as of producing an original text. This is a fault of romantic criticism. Wherever they said with confidence, and whenever they said something with confidence, they faltered. I must accept the classicist among them, John Keats's comment, "Let ever fancy roam, pleasure is never at home." Hazlitt's criticism is fanciful, and therefore this fancifulness of criticism has led to a biographical misreading of the text, and misreading especially of Shakespeare's genius. And regarding Hamlet as an original text, of course it's an original dramatic text, but the originality lies in Shakespeare's conversion of the materials that he had. Even I said a play named Our Hamlet existed before Hamlet. So even if we make a careful study of the source, say Antony and Cleopatra, based on Plutarch, not Plutarch's translation of Plutarch's Life of Greek and Roman. So in this text of Antony and Cleopatra, we have at least 20% of the lines verbatim quoted from, not Plutarch. Can we consider Antony and Cleopatra as an original text? If we have to consider that, we should say yes, Dryden's All for Love is also an original text. Literary text is again a rewriting. Dramatic text is again a rewriting of the available materials. But here, over appreciation of Shakespeare brings Hazlitt very close to a misreading of Shakespeare as an artist. Shakespeare was definitely a very great artist, but not because he created original text, but because he could convert the available source and materials. Little learning in theatre sometimes becomes dangerous. And for Shakespeare, he had that potentiality to convert that dangerous little material, little learning, into excellent dramatic text that readers often say has to be original. So it becomes original. So originality full of horrors that we find in Shakespeare's Hamlet. The character of Hamlet. Again, in the next paragraph, we have a reading of the character of Hamlet. Astha, please read the next paragraph.
Yes, sir. The character of Hamlet stands quite by itself. It is not a character marked by strength of will or even of passion, but by refinement of thought and sentiment. Hamlet is as little of the hero as a man could well be, but he is a young and princely novice, full of high enthusiasm and quick sensibility, the sport of circumstances, questioning with fortune and refining on his own feelings, and forced from the natural bias of his disposition by the strangeness of his situation. He seems incapable of deliberate action and is only hurried into extremities on the spur of the occasion, when he has no time to reflect, as in the scene where he kills Polonius, and again where he alters the letters which Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are taking with them to England, purporting his death. At other times, when he is most bound to act, he remains puzzled, undecided, and skeptical, dallies with his purposes till the occasion is lost,
and finds out some pretense to relapse into indolence and thoughtfulness again. For this reason, he refuses to kill the king when he is at his prayers, and by a refinement in malice, which is in truth only an excuse for his own want of resolution, defers his revenge to a more fatal opportunity when he shall be engaged in some act that has no relish of salvation in it. Sir, do I have to read the quotation also?
Yes,
Okay.
recite the
Now
quotation.
he is
So
okay. Now
Hamlet is
he
standing. Hamlet is standing
okay.
just at the back of Claudius. Claudius is praying. The scene is already over. The inset play within a play is already over. And now Hamlet is soliloquizing. Yes, soliloquize.
Now he is praying, and now I'll do it. And so he goes to heaven. And so am I revenged. That would be scanned. A villain kills my father, and for that I, his sole son, send him to heaven. Oh, this is hire and salary, not revenge. Up sword, and know thou a more horrid hint, when he is drunk, asleep, or in his rage. He is the prince of philosophical speculators, and because he cannot have his revenge perfect according to the most refined idea his wish can form, he declines it altogether. So he scruples to trust the suggestions of the
Ghost.
ghost, contrives the scene of the play to have surer proof of his uncle's guilt, and then rest satisfied with this confirmation of his suspicions and the success of his experiment. Instead of acting upon it, yet he is sensible of his own weakness, taxes himself with it, and tries to reason himself out of it.
Okay, thank you.
How
Thank you,
all
Asta. Thank you, Asta, for this
Thank you,
excellent
sir.
reading. So we are mainly
Thank you,
focusing
sir.
on this study of this character Hamlet with reference to the duality of his mind. Okay. So after the performance of the inset play, Murder of Gonzago, the dumb show, the king and the queen both are disturbed, they retire, and Hamlet follows King Claudius in his chamber and finds the king praying to God. Hamlet standing at the back, waiting to commit the murder, fails to commit. So he has got his main evidence that this man must have killed his father. So he had got the evidence in his hand. His private revenge has been turned into a public revenge for which he was waiting for a long time. He has caught really the conscience of the king through the play, inset play, the murder of Gonzago. But when he has to execute this task, he comes to the moment of executing his task, he procrastinates, he delays, he keeps on vacillating between the extremities of doubt, of hope, of action and inaction. So he says, now he is praying. Claudius is praying, and now I will do it. And so he goes to heaven. And so am I revenged? Am I revenged? Am I able to revenge the death of my father and this man whom I want to send to hell for committing such a heinous crime against a brother, against a king? And this man goes to heaven. So am I avenged? That would be scanned. A villain kills my father, and for that I, his sole son, send him to heaven. Oh, this is hire and salary, not revenge. So as if I am a tool villain. I have been given a task by my ghost father to do this crime, and I have done this crime without seeing the aftermath of the crime. So my desired action is to punish this man, and what he does get is prize, heavenly place, because he's praying to God. So this is hire and salary. I am not a tool villain. and this act will not be a revenge. Up, sword, and no, thou a more holly bent. So he waits. He puts the sword again in the hilt, waiting, procrastinating, and waiting for the moment when he is drunk, asleep, or in his rage. Hamlet commits a hamartia here. So Aristotle, you remember, talks about hamartia. Hamartia is a point in the life of the character, tragic hero, where two roads are there before the tragic hero. The road to be taken, road not to be taken. So there can be multiple roads in front. The character stands in the junction of life, trying to decide which road is the most suitable one. So keeps on thinking about that, and then unfortunately or fortunately commits error, miscalculation, hamartia. This error leads him to a reversal of fortune, what he has thought. So at this moment, what are these two ways? One, execute the crime, avenge, kill this man. Number two, no, wait, because this man is praying to God. And then find an opportune moment when this man is drunk, asleep, or is in rage. At that point of time, kill him, punish him, send him to hell. So whether to send this man to heaven or to hell, that is the question before Hamlet. So this hamartia is the cause of his tragedy. Is the cause of his tragedy. Had Hamlet executed the crime at this point of time, he might not have committed the crime that he never wanted to do. In the next scene, he will be killing an innocent man. And what is that innocent man doing? Polonius, hiding behind the arras. So Polonius is very close to Queen Gertrude. And in the bedchamber of Gertrude, when Hamlet has come to avenge in order to punish his mother, but he has in mind that father's words. The ghost has told him not to harm the mother. But Hamlet wants to punish the mother also, without harming her, but to confess, to make her confess of the crime. And when the curtain moves, he kills this man Polonius. So one error leads to another, a series of errors committed. So that presents the youthful, spontaneous, passionate Hamlet, where Hamlet is killing Polonius. Wanton act, sudden act, unwitting. He kills Polonius. But when he is talking about a conscious crime, conscious revenge, he is procrastinating, philosophizing, even talking about heaven and hell. When Macbeth, in a similar situation, you remember Macbeth in the famous dagger scene, when the bell is heard by Macbeth, Macbeth simply has decided that he is going to kill Duncan. So he says, "Hear it not, Duncan, for it is knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell." He is not thinking about the aftermath of his crime, whether Duncan will go to heaven or to hell. But here we have this character doubting whether this crime will be a crime or whether this crime will be turned into a rightful revenge. So he keeps on waiting. So this philosophical speculation that delays Hamlet's act of revenge is the cause of much reversal in the play. So after this scene, we find everything turning against Hamlet, reversing against Hamlet. This happens even in case of Macbeth. So Macbeth had thought that this crime be all and end all, but after committing the crime, he finds himself trapped in a world of subsequent crimes, consequent crimes. Serial killer. Macbeth becomes a serial killer. So what about Hamlet? Hamlet also becomes a serial killer. The object of revenge is, of course, King Claudius. But in the path to have revenge, who are the people Hamlet kills? Polonius, his uncle, his guardian, his tutor, educator, whom he loved. Polonius's daughter Ophelia, he is also the cause of Ophelia's death. Polonius's son Laertes, whom he killed in the final duel. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, two innocent fellow friends of Hamlet, given a state task to spy on Hamlet. It is the order of the king that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are following. And then at the end, when he receives his own fatal blow, even he is the cause of Gertrude's death, because the poison chalice offered, poison cup that is offered by King Claudius to Hamlet is drunk by Gertrude. So Hamlet, this delay in executing the crime leads to a series of crimes that Hamlet has committed. Whether Hamlet will go to heaven or hell, he is unaware of, and that dramatic irony is best revealed in this analysis by Hazlitt. So this reading of Hamlet as a character, as a psychological being, as a person who is trapped in the web of philosophy and becomes his own spider, killing himself, trapped in his own web. So the scruples, the pricks of conscience in his famous soliloquy, To Be or Not to Be, he talks about pricks of conscience that make cowards of us all, and the native hue of resolution is sickled over by pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pitch and moment turn airy and lose the name of action. This is Hamlet. Hazlitt is right in pointing out this contradiction in Hamlet and this nature of Hamlet that prevents him from committing crime because of the consequence, because of the punishment that the crime has, leads Hamlet to commit a series of crimes. Yes, we will read next. Okay, Bidisha.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Read this line, yet he is sensible.
Yeah.
Yet he is sensible of his own weakness, taxes himself.
Yet, okay, sir, I have found it. Yet he is sensible of his own weakness, taxes himself with it, and tries to reason himself out of it. How all occasions do inform against me, and spur my dull revenge. What is a man, if his chief good and market of his time be but to slip and feed? A beast, no more? Sure he that made us, with such large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not that capability and godlike reason to first in us unused. Now whether it be bestial oblivion, or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quieted hath but one part wisdom, and ever three parts coward. I do not know why, yet I leave to say these things to do. Sit, I have cause, and will, and strength, and means to do it.
Then why are you not doing
Example,
it? Why are you not doing it? If you have cause, you have will, you have strength, you have means to do it. Why are you not doing it? You are soliloquizing on it. Yeah, Bidisha, read like a soliloquy. Yeah, enter into the conflict, no play.
examples gross as earth exhorts me. Witness this army of such mass and charge, led by a delicate and tender prince, whose spirit with divine ambition purved, makes mouths at the invisible event, exposing what is mortal and unsure to all that fortune, death, and danger and dare. Even for an eggshell, rightly to be great, is not to stir without great argument, but greatly to find quarrel in a straw. When honour's at the stake, how stand I then, that have a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reasons and my blood, and let all sleep, while to my shame I see the immediate death of 20,000 men, that for a fantasy and trick of fame go to their graves like beds, fights for plot, whereon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the stain. Oh, from this time forth my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth.
Okay, thank you. So, long soliloquy of Hamlet you have read. And what
Yes,
is
sir.
the content of the soliloquy that draws the attention of Hazlitt? He finds this long soliloquy worth quoting is the romantic mind of Hamlet. A mind torn between extremities of passions, between the desire for life and the shadow of death. Even Sigmund Freud talked about these extremities of passion between eros and death. And we have this Hamlet the philosopher, the romantic philosopher, speculating on the aspects of life. So he has his reasons, he has his necessary resources, the materials to commit. He has already converted his private revenge into a public one, yet he keeps on vacillating, he keeps on delaying the act of revenge. This entire moralizing the act makes Hamlet a character who is, of course, more human than other characters of Shakespeare, but also a character who is trapped in the web of ideas. He is unable to understand which idea in the political world of Denmark is the right one. So this ideological stasis, the ideological quandary, confusion, trapped in this state of perpetual nothingness, inactivity, passivity, makes Hamlet a tragic hero. So other tragic heroes are unlike Hamlet. And this tragic hero finds much affinity with romantic imagination. Although we have Manfred, a character Manfred, where we have more identification with a character like Macbeth, and romantic writers often found in King Lear the untold passions, the strength of human passion. But in Hamlet, they found a mind that is torn, a mind that is in perpetual state of contradictions, confusion, debates, anxieties, dilemmas, doubts, unable to resolve such problems of life. So this essay reveals more about the romantic temperament along with the mind of Hamlet. So in romantic criticism, we often find this psychological curiosity with relation to the characters. Most of the romantic works, original romantic works, are also works on psychological curiosity. For example, Kubla Khan has been read as a poem of psychological curiosity. Even Keats's works like Ode on a Grecian Urn has been regarded as a work on mystery and curiosity left unresolved. Here we find the appreciation almost bordering on the fences of romantic thought. So Hamlet, still he does nothing. And this very speculation on his own infirmity only affords him another occasion for indulging it. This indulgence that he finds, perpetual indulgence, it is not from any want of attachment to his father or of abhorrence of his murder, that Hamlet is thus dilatory, but it is more to his taste to indulge his imagination in reflecting upon the enormity of the crime and refining on his schemes of vengeance than to put them into immediate practice. His ruling passion is to think, not to act. Interesting comment again. His ruling passion is to think, not to act. Hamlet has been considered as a philosophical prince who is trapped in thought, unable to convert his thought into definite action. And any vague pretext that flatters this propensity instantly diverts him from his previous purposes. So enterprises of great pitch and moment lose the name of action. They simply turn awry. They are not resolved. Yes, who will read the next paragraph? Yeah, Tushali, please read the next paragraph. So we will conclude our reading with this paragraph. Tushali, are you there? Okay, Nafisha, read the paragraph.
Sir.
The moral
The
perfection.
moral,
Yeah.
The
Yes.
moral perfection of this character has been called in question. We think by those who did not understand it. It is more interesting than according to rules, amiable though not faultless. The ethical delineation of that noble and liberal casuist, as Shakespeare has been well called, do not exhibit the drab coloured quirkism of morality. His plays are not copied either from the whole duty of man or from the Academy of Compliments. We confess we are a little shocked at the want of refinement in those who are shocked at the want of refinement in those in Hamlet. The neglect of punctilious exactness in his behavior either partakes of the license of the time or else belong to the very excess of intellectual refinement in the character which makes the common rules of life as well as his own purpose sit loose upon him. He may be said to be amiable only to the tribunal of his own thoughts, and is too much taken up with the airy worlds of contemplation to lay as much stress as he ought on the practical consequence of things. His habitual principles of action are unhinged and out of joint with time. His conduct to Ophelia is unique nature in
Yes.
in
It's
his
quite
circumstances
natural.
is
Conduct to
quite
Ophelia.
natural in his circumstances. It is that of assumed severity only. It is the effect of disappointed hope, of, of bitter regrets of affection suspended, not obliterated by the distractions of the scene around him. Amidst the natural and perpetual horrors of his situation, he might be
Preternatural horror.
preternatural horrors of his situation, he might be excused in delicacy from carrying on a regular courtship. When his father's spirit was in arms, it was not a time for um, it was not a time for the son to make love in. He could neither marry Ophelia nor would her mind by explaining the cause of his alienation, which he durst hardly trust himself to think of. It would have taken him years to have come to a direct explanation on the point. In the harassed state of mind he could not have done much otherwise than he did. His conduct does not contradict what he says when he sees her funeral.
Wow,
I
excellent
love
reading. Okay, up to this. Excellent reading. So we conclude, we will discuss on this paragraph. So would you consider the last paragraph that Nafisha has just read as a sympathetic reading of Shakespeare's Hamlet? Romantic critics have often been called as sympathetic readers of Shakespeare's works. They sympathize too much, especially with the characters. And Hamlet, Malvolio, these are the characters with whom the romantic critics most sympathized. Characters like King Lear, with whom romantic critics often sympathized. So, would you read this paragraph as a sympathetic reading of Shakespeare's Hamlet? He is pardoned for all his crime. Even his crime against Ophelia has been pardoned by Hazlitt. Would you consider this as a right reading of Shakespeare or too subjective reading of Shakespeare? So, admiration for the poet should not simply turn into an admiration of the faults of the poet, according to Dr. Johnson. Although Dr. Johnson himself, in the preface to Shakespeare, talks about this, that his admiration for Shakespeare outweighs his search for faults. He was an excellent fault finder, and he says that his admiration for Shakespeare outweighs such fault finding. So, with this, we conclude today's lecture. It has been long. Thank you very much. Any questions you can ask? Thank you very much for your participation.